Tired of drinking water from a stream? Yucky sediment! Try bottled water for just a nickel. And I said, that's not a cheeseburger, that's my wife. Hello, and welcome back to the Flaaphy channel. It's been a little bit. Today we're going to be taking a look at one of the most influential games to ever be released, an absolute monolith of the industry, Bioshock. As always, we're going to walk through the story, I'm going to provide my input and add some additional context throughout, and then we'll discuss my personal score and whether or not I feel that the game is a worthwhile experience in 2024, or in other words, does it hold up? I have some specifics to share about this review, but if you'd like to skip straight to the meat and potatoes, either use the chapters down below or go to the timestamp posted on screen. Otherwise, would you kindly bear with me as we go over a few things. The biggest thing here is that I'm playing the remastered version of Bioshock in this playthrough. This was primarily done for the purposes of recording, as the remastered version supports higher resolution without actually changing anything about the game. I'd also like to mention that this is my first time playing Bioshock. A lot of you might view this as a good and rare thing because the majority of retrospective reviews are plagued with bias and nostalgia. Unfortunately, I know firsthand that some people won't respect my take on Bioshock's longevity because I wasn't there when it first came out. If you're going to attack me for my thoughts on something that you might love, please base it around parts of this video that I might have gotten wrong or opinions that you disagree with. I know that sounds ridiculous, but the last time I reviewed a game after playing it for the first time, someone got mad at me for clickbaiting them with "Does it hold up?" For the record, playing Bioshock for the first time in 2024, fish emoji would do better both for searchability and the algorithm. By the way, I'm starting to stream parts of the gameplay process for this series over on my Twitch channel, where we're also going to be doing some stuff for my brand new second channel. Right now, it's just React content over there, but I have some fun ideas for the future, like a few IRL streams. So if that sounds like something that you'd be interested in, please feel free to check it out. The links are in the description, just to make it a little bit easier for you. Please, thanks for indulging me. Now would you kindly sit back, relax, and enjoy the rest of the video. The game opens with a monologue from our main protagonist, Jack. Rather than summarizing this part like I usually would, I think it's best to play the full intro as it's an integral part of the story.
They told me, son, you're special. You were born to do great things. You know what? They were right.
The plane suddenly crashes. You're the only survivor. As we head to this ominous, conveniently placed lighthouse for shelter, I want to make it clear that we don't learn anything about Jack until well over halfway through the game. In fact, the intro is the only line of dialogue or inner monologue, whatever you want to call it, throughout the entirety of Bioshock. I know it's kind of jumping ahead, but all we know about Jack at this point is that he has a family, some sort of grounded backstory, and sounds like he's anywhere in his 20s or 30s. Upon entering the lighthouse, we see a large statue of a man with a banner reading, "No gods or kings, only man," with a smaller plaque below, which states, "In what country is there a place for people like me, Andrew Ryan?" We take this oddly placed submarine down and are shown a video made by Ryan himself. The video is about why Andrew Ryan created the underwater city known as Rapture. In summary, Ryan's goal was to create a city where the artist would not fear the censor, where the scientist would not be bound by petty morality, where the great would not be constrained by the small. The inspiration for Andrew Ryan's character design came from objectivist philosopher Ayn Rand. While this isn't necessarily important, it will hold a key detail later. Before we get any further, I just want to say that I absolutely love this art style and the design of Rapture. Mixing a sort of 1940s to 50s big city aesthetic with the deep sea is objectively really cool. For what it's worth, I think establishing Andrew Ryan as both the main antagonist and someone of importance in the way that they did was also executed really well. As we're heading to Rapture, we hear a voice talk about the plane crash and then urge someone to go and help us. When we arrive,
everyone one to question Providence. I'm Atlas, and I aim to keep you alive. Now keep on moving. We're gonna have to get you to higher ground.
Atlas acts as our sort of guide throughout the early parts of the story. While he does provide us with some helpful tips like asking us to find a wrench,
Would you kindly find a crowbar or something?
I found it kinda hard to trust Atlas. To him, we're just strangers. We haven't even seen or talked to this person yet, but regardless, he's still trying to help us. As we continue, we find a syringe, which we choose to inject ourselves with because why not? Now I know what to do if I find a syringe, I guess. We see lightning pulse through our veins until we fall over the railing and pass out. While we sleep, we see both some splicers and a little sister accompanied by a big daddy. We'll explain these two soon. The thing that we injected ourselves with is called a plasmid. They essentially augment our body to give us superpowers. There are a lot of these which we can unlock later, but for now, this allows us to shoot electricity from our hand, which we use to open the door and continue. My first negative experience with Bioshock unfortunately came from this part. As well designed as this game might seem, they do not let you hit this fish with your wrench. Why would you even put a fish here if I couldn't hit it with my wrench? That's stupid. This game is stupid. As we continue through this part of the story, we get a little more information about Atlas.
Listen, I've got a family. I need to get them out of here. But the splicers have cut me off from them. If you can reach them in Neptune's bounty, then maybe, just maybe. I know you must feel like the unluckiest man in the world right now, but you're the only hope I'll ever see my wife and child again. Go to Neptune's bounty. Find my family, please.
Atlas claims he needs you in order to see his family again, and the only thing we currently know about Jack is that he has a family which he seems to care about. It's not much to connect the characters, but it's at least some sort of common ground. So while we aren't exactly sure who Atlas is or if we can trust him yet, we at least have a reason to help him. Shortly after, we get the revolver and continue on. Once we reach this area, Atlas will explain that the little sisters used to be children, but somebody turned them into monsters. They carry around and harvest Adam from dead people, which is the raw material used to create plasmids, and is also abused as a sort of drug by the citizens of Rapture. The Big Daddies protect the little sisters at all costs, and that's basically all you need to know about them. Throughout Bioshock, there are different electronic devices which you're able to gain control of through hacking. These puzzles are actually quite fun for me. The early ones are really easy, but as the game continues, these get progressively more difficult, and I feel like the ramping difficulty is done appropriately. Although sometimes, on very rare occasions, these can be generated in ways that make them impossible to do, as seen in this Reddit post. By the way, if you didn't notice already, there's going to be a few skips throughout this video. While Bioshock does a great job at incorporating its story into the world as you play, the majority of your experience will be spent in combat, and the actual story elements are so far between, especially at the beginning of the game, that I found it a little difficult to stay engaged at certain points. This isn't a bad thing, because while at some points I didn't feel engaged, I was always curious, and that's what the beginning of Bioshock is designed to do, so they succeeded on that front. I just unfortunately can't really talk about and describe that to you in this style of review. Through this section, we gain the ignition and telekinesis plasmids as well as the shotgun. You can hold as many weapons as you'd like at any given time, but plasmids and perks, which you can both earn and find hanging around, have a limited number of slots. More can be purchased later on in the game, but for right now, we have to be selective. At this point in the game, we're trying to reach Neptune's bounty, but we can't get there unless we have the key from Dr. Steinman, who is the lead surgeon of Rapture. Adam abuse drew him to madness. He's obsessed with perfection and is also a really disappointing and incredibly easy boss fight.
That one's too fat! This one's too tall! This one's too symmetrical! And now, what's this got? An intruder! He's ugly! 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 Ugly!
As we continue, we eventually find a Big Daddy getting thrown through a window. A little sister is being threatened by a splicer but is saved by Dr. Tenenbaum. Dr. Tenenbaum is responsible for the creation of the Little Sisters and acts as their mother, caring for them and trying to keep them safe in Rapture. Atlas insists that we need to kill the Little Sisters and harvest Adam from them, explaining that they aren't human anymore. They are monsters. He claims that we need the Adam from them in order to survive and asks if you're really willing to risk both your life and the lives of his family in order to save the Frankensteins.
Are you prepared to trade your life, the lives of my wife and child, for Tenenbaum's of Frankenstein?
Dr. Tenenbaum obviously rejects this idea and offers you a way to rescue the Little Sisters from their condition instead. The choice is yours as the player every time you encounter a Little Sister, and it does impact the story. Atlas convinces you that the Little Sisters are monsters, which they are to some extent. You witness this firsthand. You gain more if you choose to harvest them, but Dr. Tenenbaum also promises to make it worth your while if you choose to save them. The thing is, we at least know that Atlas just wants to save his family, and he's helped us this far, but we have no idea who Dr. Tenenbaum is or what her goals are. All we know is that she's responsible for creating the Little Sisters, and she wants to protect them. On paper, this choice could go either way, but given that we at least have some sort of relationship with Atlas, it leans more in his side. Saving a few and harvesting the rest is the ideal solution for the best of both worlds, but despite the monsters they appear to be, I couldn't bring myself to kill the Little Sisters a single time.
You saved me.
As we continue, we enter Fontaine's Fisheries. Lore time. Frank Fontaine is essentially Rapture's mob boss or godfather. He was responsible for funding the research and development of Adam and plasmids, as well as a few other things like creating multiple false charities, including one that would take in children from families which would secretly be experimented on. Essentially, everything that destroyed Rapture was caused by the strain that Frank Fontaine put on it. Where Andrew Ryan represents the concept of objectivism, Frank Fontaine represents the flaws of an objectivist society. The feud between them would eventually lead to a shootout where Fontaine was killed. Shortly after his death, Rapture would enter a civil war as a result of a revolution spearheaded by Atlas, and we can see how well that's going. We're heading through Fontaine's Fisheries to reach the place where Atlas's family is being held. He plans to meet us there as well. As we're heading through, we eventually meet Peach Wilkins. Wilkins isn't really presented as particularly important, however, he was one of the leaders in Fontaine's smuggling operation and is likely responsible for tipping off Andrew Ryan's men, resulting in the shootout. Peach Wilkins is a distrusting person. He won't let us through until we get him a research camera and gives us a grenade launcher to help. The research camera lets us take pictures of different enemies, which gains us progress towards unlocking perks, which are typically bonus damage to the type of enemy being photographed. Wilkins wants us to photograph 3 different spider splicers. Now, these enemies are fairly difficult to beat early, so it can be a little tricky, unless this happens. Oh! Once you complete this task, Wilkins will let you through, but forces you to store your weapons before you enter. This is very obviously a trap, but using your plasmids and wrench, you can kill Peach and the others and continue through. This is where the game hit a turning point for me, and here's why.
Hit the switch up there in the control booth and let me in. I think it's time to shake hands and get acquainted.
You've had your fun, but enough is enough. If you press that button, you'll learn what it means to truly be my enemy.
You blow a fuse up there! Can't see a damn thing in that booth! Give me a tick and I'll get you out of there! Moira! Can you hear me in there, darling?
So dark. If only your friend could look up and see. Maybe she only would do something, anything. Except just stand here and watch it die.
up as soon as we can!
You ooze in like an assassin, and then you try to sneak out like a thief. You're no CIA spook. Who are you? Why have you come here? There's two ways to deal with a mystery. Uncover it, or eliminate it.
Get out! Get out and get to Arcadia! Jesus Christ!
I was no longer distracting myself with gameplay and exploration while waiting for the story to happen. In a single flick of the wrist or drop of the bomb, Bioshock managed to drop that story directly on my plate like a 4-course meal. This moment is so powerful it cannot be understated. From here, we head to Arcadia, the Rapture's underwater forest. This area's scenery is really pretty, which is in stark contrast to the typical dull and run-down look of the rest of Rapture. However, it doesn't stray too much away from the general theme, so it still manages to fit in. We're coming up hot on Andrew Ryan's trail. He'll take any steps necessary to stop us from here, including filling Arcadia with gas. These are the only trees in all of Rapture. Kill the oxygen source, kill Jack. We're able to reverse this process with the help of Professor Julie Langford. She was responsible for building Arcadia and seems to hate Andrew Ryan both for commercializing her creation and attempting to destroy it. Unfortunately, Ryan was one step ahead of Langford and set up measures to lock her office and flood it with gas in the event something like this were to happen. As she's dying, she manages to scribble the code to a safe which is hidden in the office that contains the formula necessary for saving Arcadia. I do wish that Langford was a little more fleshed out, which is unfortunately my take with the majority of characters that we meet throughout Bioshock. It's a little more unfortunate here because she very clearly just exists as a way to showcase Andrew Ryan's cruelty. As we continue to our next area, Fort Frolic, I want to further talk about how Bioshock attempts to get you invested in their characters. Given that your interactions with the majority of NPCs are both short and limited, there's only so much that can be done to leave a long-lasting impression on the player. There are hidden audio diaries that you can find to learn additional lore, but aside from completely optional content, the main way Bioshock attempts to get you hooked on their characters is through strong visuals and great voice acting, and no other character exhibits these two things quite like Sander Cohen.
So say goodbye to those two blowhards, and hello to an evening with Sander Cohen.
Da 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 da! No! Oh, Cohen, you sick fuck! Let me out of there!
Come down now, little more. Life, death. The burden of the artist is to capture. See young Fitzpatrick here on the stage. Use your camera. Take him as he is now, so I may remember him.
Cohen was once a well-respected artist of multiple forms who descended into madness once Rapture started to fall. His main art pieces now are made from posing and then plastering people after brutally murdering them. He's very theatrical, short-tempered, and most importantly, plays by his own rules. He cuts off our communications to both Atlas and Ryan, only letting us continue once we help him complete his Quatiche, which is a fancy art word for a piece composed of 4 pictures. These pictures are of his disciples, which we have to kill first in order to photograph. The performance given by T. Ryder Smith is absolutely incredible and just further drives this unsettling feeling that we get from Sander Cohen. You are in a psychopath's world playing a psychopath's game. He is present for maybe an hour worth of playtime, and in that hour manages to establish himself as a fan favorite character, and rightfully so. From this point forward, we head to Andrew Ryan's office.
Now would you kindly head to Ryan's office and kill the son of a bitch?
It's blocked off by an electrical system which we shut down by building an EMP. Honestly, the gameplay for this section is basically just throwing as many enemies at you as they can, which is fine, especially because this is the most story-intense section of the game. Throughout this part, Ryan begins talking to us more frequently. His comments start off as threatening, but as we get closer and closer to Ryan, they become more pointed specifically at Jack.
I offer you quick death, Parasite. It would be preferable to what you learn if you win. So far away from your family, from your friends, from everything you ever loved. But for some reason, you like it here. You feel something. Can't quite put your finger on. Think about it for a second, and maybe the word will come to you. Nostalgia.
Ryan knows something, but what? As we approach his office, he states,
Even in the book of lies, sometimes you find truth. There is indeed a season for all things. And now that I see you flesh to flesh and blood to blood, I know I cannot raise my hand against you. But know this, you are my greatest disappointment. Does your master hear me? Atlas, you can kill me, but you will never have my city. My strength is not in steel and fire. That is what the parasites will never understand. A season for all things. A time to live and a time to die. A time to build and a time to destroy! Come now, my child. There is one final thing to discuss.
Ryan sets the core of Rapture to self-destruct and says that he has one final thing to discuss with you. As we head towards his office, we eventually drop down into a room with the words, "Would you kindly," written in red. I'll explain the bulletin board shortly. As we enter Ryan's office, we're greeted with one of the most iconic scenes from any game released in the 2000s. It would be a disservice for me to do anything other than let it play out.
The assassin has overcome my final defense, and now he's come to murder me. In the end, what separates a man from a slave? Money? Power? No. A man chooses. A slave obeys. You think you have memories. A farm. A family. An airplane. A crash. And then this place. Was there really a family? Did that airplane crash? Or was it hijacked? Forced down. Forced down by something less than a man, something bred to sleepwalk through life until they are activated by a simple phrase spoken by their kindly master. Was a man sent to kill, or a slave? A man chooses. A slave obeys. Come in. Stop, would you kindly? Would you kindly? Powerful phrase. Familiar phrase.
Would you kindly? Would you kindly get this? Would you kindly find that? Would you kindly find that? Would you kindly find? Would you kindly get this? Would you kindly head to Ryan's office and kill the son of a bitch?
Sit, would you kindly? Stand, would you kindly? Run! Stop! Turn. A man chooses. A slave obeys. Kill! chooses! A slave obeys! Obey!
Hurry now! Grab Ryan's genetic key! Now would you kindly put it in that goddamn machine? Nice work, Bio. It's time to end this little masquerade. There ain't no Atlas kid. Never was. Fellas, my line of work takes on a variety of aliases. Hell, once I was even a Chinaman for 6 months. But you've been a sport, so I guess I owe you a little honesty. The name's Frank Fontaine. I gotta say, I had a lot of business partners in my life, but you, of course, the fact that you were genetically conditioned to bark like a cocker spaniel when I said, would you kindly, might have had something to do with it, but still. Now, as soon as that machine finishes processing the genetic key you just fished off Ryan, I'm gonna run Rapture tits to toes. You've been a pal. You know what they say? Never mix business with friendship. Thanks for everything, kid. Don't forget to say hi to Ryan for me.
Frank Fontaine faked his death and disguised himself as Atlas. Not only did he use Jack like a puppet, but he also tricked you as the player into trusting him. There never was any family to save. Nobody important ever died from that incredibly impactful bomb drop. It has all been a lie. Bundled up in that lie is a web of truth that can be sort of difficult to unravel, but it's just like Andrew Ryan said, even in a book of lies, sometimes you find truth.
Quick little side note for you, may or may not have forgotten to write this into the script, but the reason that Frank Fontaine's alias is Atlas is because the best-selling novel by Ayn Rand is called Atlas Shrugged. So there you go, just a little bit of fun trivia for you. The actual lore of Bioshock is kind of all over the place in terms of where all the characters fit in with each other's stories, so I'll try my best to make this as simple as possible. Think of Jack as a sort of sleeper agent that was experimented on from birth by a man called Dr. Yi Suchong. He planted the phrase, "would you kindly," into Jack's mind as a way of controlling him. Even though it's just a video game, there is an audio diary right in front of the bulletin board in which Dr. Suchong forces a young Jack to kill a puppy, and it's pretty hard to listen to. So, Jack was experimented on as a child, but who exactly is Jack? Well, he's the illegitimate son of Andrew Ryan and a stripper named Jasmine Jolene. She worked in Sander Cohen's club, and upon visiting, you can find her dead body. An audio diary can be found that explains exactly how Fontaine got hold of Jack. When Jolene discovered she was pregnant, she wasn't sure what to do. Afraid to tell Andrew Ryan, she asked a friend for help. Her friend told her to try and seek independence from Ryan so that she wouldn't have to rely on him anymore.
Frank Fontaine caught wind of this and asked Dr. Tenenbaum to offer some money in exchange for the fetus that would eventually grow to be Jack. It's not too important to this part of the story, but Andrew Ryan did find this out and beat Jasmine Jolene to death as a result. Just thought that you should know that. Fontaine and Suchong implanted a fake life, fake memories, and a fake family into Jack's mind. Due to the experimenting done to Jack, he aged at a substantial rate. Jack is reportedly 24 years old according to his fake passport, which isn't used in-game but is still viewable in the files. However, Jack was born in 1956, and this game takes place in 1960, making him 4 years old. Does this story make sense? Not really. They didn't need to make Jack canonically 4 years old. They kind of chose to write it that way. I don't think it makes things much worse. It's just a really weird choice, and I think it's kind of funny. But moving away from that, though, let's talk about the cutscene. Andrew Ryan's speech is extremely powerful, and I want to take an extra moment to break it down because I feel like it can be interpreted in a few different ways. I personally believe that this is Andrew Ryan's ultimate display of his beliefs. A man chooses, a slave obeys. Andrew Ryan chooses to be executed at the hands of Jack, who has no choice but to obey. It doubles as both a way of belittling you and as a way for Andrew Ryan to come out of the situation in control. Revealing that you were essentially a puppet this whole time and then forcing you to do this intensifies just how much Jack was being used throughout this whole game. Andrew Ryan is a terrible person. Killing him is probably a good thing, but your reasons for hunting him down were never your own. It was all a lie. You wouldn't ever come to Rapture if it weren't for Fontaine forcing you to take down a plane of innocent civilians. So while this would usually be the moment where you're like, yeah, I finally got the bad guy, you're just sort of left in this weird gray area. I wish I could tell you the game only gets better from here, but it's simply too high of a peak to keep up with. Fontaine takes control of Rapture and orders all the defense drones to kill you. As you're running away, you're eventually saved by the Little Sisters. Okay, they might trick you into falling into a pit, but you are saved because of this, so it still counts. You're in the care of Dr. Tenenbaum. She undoes some of the mental conditioning that Yu Chong and Fontaine put on you, mainly the "would you kindly" command. Tenenbaum regrets all of the work that she did with Fontaine. As we mentioned in the beginning of this video, she cares for the Little Sisters as if she's their mother. She rightfully feels responsible for their creation and developed the plasmid which allows you to rescue them and reverse the effects of whatever had poisoned them in the first place. Our goal from here is to completely undo our mental conditioning and take down Fontaine. I'm going to skip through a large majority of this because it's mostly just a lengthy fetch quest to get things like the cure from Suchong's lab and a Big Daddy outfit so that we can trick the Little Sisters into helping us get through a locked door. The only important thing that you need to know is in order to have a chance to beat Jack, Fontaine injected himself with a crazy amount of Adam. Bro looks like Captain Adam. Oh shit. This fight is really not that impressive or difficult. If anything, it's just the perfect example of Bioshock being a shooter game. I feel that an ending fight like this is typical from the genre.
I had you built. I sent you topside. I called you back, showed you what you was capable of. Even that life you thought you had, that was something I dreamed up and had tattooed inside your head. Now, if you don't call that family, I don't know what is. And
Pause. This is where your decision to either save or harvest the Little Sisters comes into play. If you chose to harvest even a few of the little sisters, you get the bad ending. Jack takes over Rapture, goes absolutely insane, steals a nuke, and basically carries out what Fontaine originally plans to do. If you didn't harvest any little sisters and instead saved the majority, you'll get the good ending. Jack returns to the surface and rescues the little sisters, giving them a chance at life and even adopting a family of his own, giving him the life he never had. Now it's time for me to talk about my opinion on Bioshock before we get into my personal score and discuss whether or not I believe this game holds up in today's gaming market. Firstly, while the combat system can be fun at times, I didn't particularly care for it. My favorite weapon in this game is the wrench because it's the only weapon that made me feel like I was doing something cool. I'm not really sure what's missing from the other weapons, but there's something about them which doesn't click with me. As for the plasmids, I think they're fun. You can do some cool creative stuff with them, and there's so many to choose from. My only thing with plasmids specifically is that I wish they were used more outside of combat. I think there was potential to create some really cool plasmid-related puzzles, and they dropped the bag there a little bit. I will say, as a fault of the combat system in general, switching between your weapons and plasmids doesn't feel great. I wish I could use both at the same time, especially since the payoff you get from switching between the two constantly isn't anything amazing. As an added note, when I start off a new game, I usually pick whatever difficulty is a step above normal because I like a bit of a challenge. The way Bioshock handled this wasn't good in my opinion. Early enemies were pretty beefy and it often felt like I wasn't doing an appropriate amount of damage, but as I progressed and I gained more buffs and better weapons, it switches to being too easy just to eventually go back to a place where I'd rather smack everyone with the wrench because my revolver hits like a wet napkin. Outside of the combat system, I have a few other issues with Bioshock. I think the choice to have Jack be a silent protagonist past the intro of the game is a double-edged sword. If Jack had the room to express his thoughts or even interact with some characters, it would potentially make a lot of the quicker moments feel more impactful. That said, having the only thoughts effectively come from the player themselves and Frank Fontaine pretending to be Atlas makes it so the big reveal feels more personal. Certain parts of the game feel like they drag on a bit despite amazing performances from the entire cast of Bioshock. Certain characters are written well but aren't given the appropriate interactions or time to leave a lasting effect on the player, especially if you don't listen to the completely optional audio diaries. As a little nitpick, I know the game was designed so that the story and gameplay happen simultaneously, but the audio mixing isn't great for this at most parts of the game. I think they did a really good job of setting the environment of a rundown underwater city in the 60s. Environmental storytelling is used all over the place, even at the very start of the game. It's something Bioshock is often praised for, but a part of this that often goes unnoticed is their subtle use of period-appropriate music. It's loud enough to be heard, but quiet enough where Beyond the Sea by Bobby Darin doesn't become synonymous with the identity of the game, like I Don't Want to Set the World on Fire did with Fallout 3 and subsequently Fallout 4. Really great work on this front. Music is super important to me. As a fun little Easter egg and bonus point, the attention to detail is so good in Bioshock that if you pass the lever that you're supposed to pull in this section and head on over to the submarine where Atlas's family is supposed to be, Atlas will ask you if you hear his family, which of course you can't because they aren't real. The elements of the game's story which I found poor in the beginning are almost made up by how intense the switch is that makes you rethink your entire experience up to that point. But the story falls off so incredibly hard for the final stretch of the game. There's some cool parts if you get seriously invested in the lore of Bioshock, but this boss fight just kinda sucks. The good ending is a solid way of wrapping up the story, but the bad ending is just kinda... I mean, really? He gets a nuke? Like, from where? Bioshock has its good and even great moments. Andrew Ryan's speech, Sander Cohen, area design, environmental storytelling. There's so much that's done well that the moments of this game that feel boring or slow-paced are often overlooked. The IGN review is the perfect example of this. They rated Bioshock a 9.7 out of 10. almost a perfect score, yet somehow managed to get several things about the game wrong. To this day, the IGN summary says that Bioshock takes place in the late 1940s, when in fact it takes place in 1960. You might be thinking, come on, Flaaphy, mistakes happen, right? I'm sure that's something you could easily miss. Here's the start of the game. Here's the room that you walk into immediately after getting the revolver at the start of the game. Need more? Later in this review, they talk about how amazing the sound design is. And like I said, it is really amazing, but all of the licensed music that was used for the game is from 1959 or older. So if you believe that this game was set in the late 1940s, then this would inherently be bad sound design. They also said that the game is designed to force you to fight big daddies, which is simply not true. They'll get mad at you if you stand near a little sister, but they'll only fight if you attack first. They are the only passive characters in the entire game. I say all of this because, while I do find Bioshock to be really good, exceptional even, I don't think its flaws, mainly in gameplay, can be ignored in the way that they usually are. Had the story not fallen off in the way that it did, and were the gameplay a little more polished, I could understand the higher, almost perfect scores that this game frequently receives. I enjoyed my time with Bioshock. I see myself remembering the experience for a long time, and I am leaving the game wanting more from the series. And it is for those reasons that I think Bioshock deserves a solid 8.5 out of 10. But as many of you know, that's not really the point of this series. Sometimes the bad experiences are worth experiencing, and sometimes the good ones aren't worth all the trouble. So does Bioshock hold up? While I do feel like the combat, which is where you'll spend most of your time, is a little outdated, nearly everything else in this game was monumental for the industry and still stands leagues above most modern titles. If you're only into shooter games like Call of Duty and don't care much for story, then I don't think that this game, or any game for that matter, is for you. Otherwise, this is an absolute banger. I am putting this right up there as the second official must-play of Does It Hold Up? Thanks for watching. Don't forget to leave a like on the video if you found yourself enjoying it, and subscribe if you haven't already. If you want to see more out of this channel and the Does It Hold Up series, make sure to leave a comment down below of whatever game you'd like to see next. It can even be as simple as just, I want Bioshock 2. I'd be happy to do that for you. I add all the options to a spreadsheet, and we currently have everything ranging from SpongeBob SquarePants Super Sponge to the entirety of the Dark Souls series. I am so serious, those are two real submissions. If you have any interest in watching me film the gameplay sections of these videos live and want to provide your input to possibly shape the outcome of one of these videos, then feel free to stop by my Twitch channel at twitch.tv/Flaaphy. We're going to be doing a lot more stuff on there than just gameplay, but that's all going to be there too. It's going to be a little fun time, so if you want to hang out, come check it out. Thanks for watching, and if there's one thing that I want you to take away from this, the most important thing, the thing that you should never forget, as always, have a fantastic rest of your day.